Welcome back to this special edition of the news. Today, the European Union is reportedly interested in opening negotiations with Israel to prevent action in the West Bank, deemed red lines, which may jeopardize a future Palestinian state. Officials in the Israeli Foreign Ministry are concerned the negotiations are prelude to further European sanctions against Israel. Alongside this, the Jordanian government asked Israel this week to provide clarifications over a bill which seeks to change the status quo in the Temple Mount by letting Jews pray at the site. Are we seeing the start of another wave of pressure from the international community towards Israel? And how should Israel respond? Joining me tonight to answer this question is Mr. Ashraf Al-Ajami, former Palestinian Minister of Prisoners Affairs. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming.
Good evening.
And also Dani Dayan, former chairman of the Yesha Council for West Bank Settlements. Good evening. Thank you very much for coming. Maybe the international community also gave up on Israel. Maybe it's about time that the international community will say, okay, you don't know what to do with yourself. The Palestinians don't know what to do with themselves. Maybe it's about time that we will put the red lines and we will decide what will happen there.
Well, I don't think that, by the way, the term red lines wasn't mentioned in the document that was published today in Haaretz, neither the word sanctions. So I think that, again, we are playing the game that we are very much used to, of frightening ourselves too much. We knew in the past, even a minister, Ehud Barak, talked about an imminent diplomatic tsunami, and it didn't happen. Ministers talked about an imminent third intifada, and it didn't happen. So I would suggest to all of us to keep calm and go on doing what is best for Israel's interest. I don't believe, even for 1 minute, that the Israeli government is going to negotiate with any foreign country, whether the United States or the European Union, about construction in Jerusalem. It's a vital interest of the State of Israel. Without that construction, Jews will become a minority in Jerusalem, and this is a thing that Israel cannot allow to happen. Therefore, I think that the government of Israel will take it seriously the letter of presented by the European ambassador. But I am sure, I am positive, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet will go on keeping what is best for Israel's interests.
If we're looking at the reality, okay, the reality is saying that the capital of Israel, of the state of Israel, the Jewish country, is Jerusalem. So by law, why shouldn't Jewish people live in Jerusalem or continue building in Jerusalem when this is the capital of Israel?
But there is no even single party of this world recognizes the Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Even United States of America doesn't recognize East Jerusalem or Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So it is a problem for Israel that Israel annexed the East Jerusalem to their lands, to its lands, without any agreement with any party of the world, and it is until this moment an occupied territory. East Jerusalem, like West Bank, like Gaza Strip, they are Palestinian territories occupied in 1967. So what the Israeli government does in these territories as illegal, and there are objection in the whole countries.
Mr. Hashemi, do you see a situation that Israel will give up on Jerusalem?
I think there must be a compromise in Jerusalem between the two sides. I speak about many kinds of solutions to this problem. If the Israeli government accepts the principle of withdrawal from the 1967 territories, the occupied territories, I think we can reach a compromise even in East Jerusalem.
So I will ask you the same question. Do you think that the Palestinians will give up on Jerusalem?
No, I don't think they will give up on Jerusalem, but they will not give up on the very existence of the state of Israel, so it really doesn't matter. By the way, I don't have any argument with Mr. Al-Ajrami. He is a Palestinian, he is dedicated to advance the Palestinian interests, and I am dedicated to advance the Israeli interests. So my argument is not with Mr. Al-Ajrami, which I respect very much in his positions. But look, Lucy, I read in the European document that they say, and it's a very common argument, that by building in Jerusalem or in Gush Etzion or elsewhere, Israel prejudges the outcome of the negotiations. Now, also by not constructing, Israel prejudges the outcome of the negotiations. If we do not build in Jerusalem, Jerusalem will not be ours. And yes, what our intention is, that was said very clearly by Prime Minister Eshkol on, including Prime Minister Rabin, that Israel is the eternal, undivided capital of the State of Israel and only of the State of Israel. And we are working for that. We are not hiding that.
So if, let's, like I told him, spoke with him about the reality and that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, if we're going and traveling in Jerusalem, we see that the city is already divided. We see that the city is not united. It's there is this Arabic part, there is the East, there is the West. So why to provoke?
But
why to not just say, okay, this is the reality, this is what happens on the ground, okay, these are the lines, let's draw the lines and let's finish with that already.
Because there are no lines that will satisfy both Israel and the Palestinians. So this kind of talk about dividing not only Jerusalem, dividing the country, dividing the land from the Mediterranean to the Jordan is completely futile. There is no line that divides into the land that we call Eretz Israel and Ashraf calls Palestine that will satisfy both of us. Therefore, there is no here a real room for a compromise. The two-state solution, I think, that was the only game in the table for many, many years, for 2 decades since Oslo, but even for 7 decades, if we go even back in history, has failed. It will not be the solution to the conflict. We have to think about innovative, out-of-the-box, functional and not territorial compromises in order to bring peace. Only when we start doing that, there is a chance. It will take, I think, at least a generation to find a solution to the conflict.
We'll ask you just how do you see the solution just in a short while ago. I just want to go right now to the Ammunition Hill in Jerusalem, the site of the attack where Shai Ben-Ari is standing by. Shai, what are the latest latest updates that you can give us right now?
Right, Lucy. Well, a little while ago, actually, the Minister for Internal Security, Itzhak Aharonovich, was here on the scene. And when he was asked what exactly the authorities are doing to prevent these kinds of incidents, like the apparent terror incident here at Ammunition Hill, he said that, in fact, security forces are already active this evening in various neighborhoods of East Jerusalem and will be active for the foreseeable future. Just to be clear, and to prevent any confusion, we're not talking about some sort of search operation because the perpetrator of this incident is already in hospital. He arrived in hospital with gunshot wounds after he was shot by police. We're talking about a separate operation intended to root out any sort of security terror threat against residents of Jerusalem or Israel in general, let's say. Also, the mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, was also here on the scene. He also said that there would be zero tolerance for this kind of violence, these kinds of incidents, and that gives you an idea of the atmosphere here in Israel's capital this evening.
Yes, Shai Ben-Ari, thank you very much for this. These kind of actions, just maybe in one way or another, just take the Palestinians even 10 steps far from this compromise that you mentioned, from this trying to understand and bringing East Jerusalem to be the capital of a future Palestine?
I think these actions prove that there is a need to have a solution for this conflict. There is very high tension in East Jerusalem. We see everywhere settlers, their visits to the holy camp, the Al-Aqsa mosque and the Holy Square, and the other places, even in Silwan. Everywhere there is a tension between the two sides. So there is a need to have a peaceful solution between the two people. Without this, the situation, the bad situation, especially for young people in East Jerusalem and everywhere, may motivate people to do such acts.
Because if I'm looking right now at the Palestinian side, it seems that the Palestinian side also gave up. They gave up on a peaceful solution. They gave up on a Palestinian-Israeli negotiation. They gave up on maybe the two-state solution because they are seeing that it cannot work.
No, they didn't give up. I think that they want the international community to intervene strongly in this conflict, because the Israeli state was established as an international decision, and the Palestinian state will be established as an international resolution or an international decision. And this is something that the international community has a responsibility of it. So we want to go to the international law, the international resolutions, everything to help us to reach an agreement with Israel. We want negotiation, but without these ambiguity of the references of the negotiation.
You know, there is a big sentence that we know from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the famous sentence, "Hem mefachadim," they are afraid. And it seems that Israel is a little bit afraid from the international community. It's afraid of what the international community would say, because the minute that maybe, in one way or another, President Mahmoud Abbas is trying to play in the same game, in one way or another, that Israel is playing, Israel saying, whoa, just a second, this is our game, this is not your game, this is our field, this is not your field, don't mess with us in this arena.
Look, I'm not sure I exactly know what you refer to, but I must tell you, we of course consider the international community. We take into account the opinion of our friends in Europe, in the United States, in North America, in Australia, elsewhere. We also take into consideration the views of the Palestinians and of the Arab world. But when we have to decide in our policy, the Israeli interest, one of the most vital Israeli interests is the integrity of Jerusalem, must be the leading principle. I must say, you know, we had a prime minister, Ehud Olmert, that regarding the issue of Jerusalem made the most, in my opinion, irresponsible offer to Mahmoud Abbas that you can imagine. He adopted completely the Clinton parameters, and he even suggested that the Holy Basin, including the Temple Mount and even the Kotel, the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall, to be administered by 5 states, 3 of them Muslim, a majority, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Jordan, and the State of Palestine. And even that offer was refused, was rejected by Mahmoud Abbas. So we are really playing, in Hebrew we say, chess with ourselves, or backgammon with ourselves, because there is no real sincerity, there is no real approach in the Palestinian side. Their appetite will never, it's insatiable.
It's amazing that you're saying that, because when people are asking me all the time about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I used to say that the Israelis are playing chess and the Palestinians are playing backgammon. But it seems that lately the Palestinians started playing chess as well, and they started doing some moves.
But with themselves and not with us. Every time we sat...
And Israel's not playing with itself?
No, I think that every time we sat at the table, look, I'm not saying that you can't, you know what, I will be completely sincere. I don't know if Prime Minister Netanyahu is sincere when he talks about 2 states. But Prime Minister Barak was, and Prime Minister Olmert was, one of them with the Democratic administration in the US that helped, and one of them with the Republican administration that helped. And the Palestinians, again, rejected every offer, the Barak's offer, Olmert's offer. We will not wait forever to build our capital.
I don't think that they refused the offers to have two-state solution based on 1967 borders. When we speak about the Barak offer, it wasn't offer. The Palestinian leadership couldn't accept it at all because he offered for the Palestinian less than 80 or 90% of the Palestinian occupied territories, and with Olmert they were close to have to reach an agreement. The President Mahmoud Abbas and the Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, the two of them spoke about it. They were very close to reach an agreement. Unfortunately, Olmert had to leave his position as Prime Minister.
Ashraf. That's an excuse because your president, Mahmoud Abbas, went a few months later to the Washington Post and said the reason is that the gaps were too wide.
No, I don't think so, because the gap was in the swap between the two sides. The Ehud Olmert suggested to the Palestinian leadership to annex about 6.5% from the Palestinian territories. The President Mahmoud Abbas accepted about 2% of these territories, and they have to reach an agreement between these 2%.
4% only? That was what prevented the peace. The peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
The Olmert offer will never be presented again. That is the most far-reaching offer any Israeli prime minister. By the way, that's Olmert's words. He said for 50 years, I think forever, no Israeli prime minister, for sure after the Gaza experience, will present something similar to that.
You started talking about the Gaza Strip. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told the UN Security Council on Tuesday of his plan to investigate attacks on UN facilities during Israel's recent operation in Gaza, as well as the use of UN sites to store weapons used by Hamas to fire on Israeli cities. Shai Ben-Ari has more on the UN plans and the Israeli response.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon addressed the United Nations Security Council Tuesday and took the opportunity to recount his recent visit to the Gaza Strip in the wake of Operation Protective Edge.
Nothing could have prepared me for what I witnessed in Gaza. I saw mile after mile of wholesale destruction. I visited a United Nations school in the Jabalia refugee camp, which was shelled during the hostilities. Civilians had sought protection under the UN flag. Parents and children shared heart-wrenching accounts of suffering and pain.
In a meeting earlier this week in New York, Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon told the Secretary General that Israel was conducting its own inquiries into some of the incidents, which took place during the summer's hostilities in Gaza. Last month, the IDF opened investigations into 5 separate events, including an attack on a UN school, which killed 17 people. In his comments, the Secretary General acknowledged this, but made clear the UN would also be holding its own investigation into attacks on its facilities.
I look forward to a thorough investigation by the Israeli Defense Forces of this and other incidents in which UN facilities sustained hits and many innocent people were killed. I'm planning to move forward with an independent board of inquiry to look into the most serious of those cases, as well as instances in which weaponry was found on UN premises.
A spokesman for the Secretary General added later that an official announcement regarding the specifics of the inquiry, including its participants, would be coming soon. More than 2,100 Palestinians were killed during Operation Protective Edge. 67 Israeli soldiers and 6 Israeli civilians were also killed in the hostilities. Regardless of the details of the expected inquiry, it is likely this issue will be making more headlines in the near future.
Yet again, we see that each and every operation that Israel conducts in the West Bank, or let's say the Gaza Strip, brings the flames of the entire world against it, although Israel finds itself in a position where it is being under attack. What is, maybe my question is that when the first time that it happens, you can say, oh, they don't understand it. The second time, they don't. The third time, maybe Israel should start asking itself some questions.
You know, it's very, very interesting what you just said, because the great damage to Israel's international position, international image, is not because of operation Israel does in Judea and Samaria and the so-called West Bank. The great damage comes from our operations in Gaza. And why? Because he left Gaza. And then we cannot make surgical operations. We have to bomb and we have to shell and we have to use F-16s. That's a clear lesson that I learned from the withdrawal from Gaza, the so-called disengagement, that Israel cannot do the same mistake again in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, because if we put Tel Aviv and Jerusalem at the doorsteps of a Palestinian state high on the hills of the Judea and Samaria, and as I am sure will happen, Khaled Mashal or Ismail Haniyeh come to power. One of them will be the first president of independent Palestine, either by bullet or by ballot. Then we will pose the same situation, and we will be helpless. That's my lesson from the uproar that I see in the international community by our operations in Gaza.
Do you see it happening?
I think the problem that the Israelis did this disengagement one-sided. The Israeli government decided it alone. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority to make it step as
But isn't it what the Palestinians are trying to do right now with the West Bank?
No.
By the unilateral steps that are trying to do in front of the UN and the international community?
No. We want to have a peaceful agreement with Israel. We want the international community to push Israel to have this agreement. We want resolutions that the Israelis accept them to as a reference for the negotiation. We want a peaceful negotiation and
but you want that the world will recognize a state of Palestine before that the one who is occupying the state of Palestine will recognize the state of Palestine. So this...
No, there is no contradiction between these two things. At least we want an international pressure on Israel, and this pressure will lead the Israeli government to accept the solution that the whole international community wants it or sees it as a just solution for this conflict.
You know, in one way or another, if we're looking right now at the security maybe arrangements that there is between the Israelis and the Palestinians in the West Bank, it's working. Israel is working with in a good way with the Palestinians. They are managing to work together. They were managing with the information and the intelligence that they got to let's say, take and find the two people who murdered and kidnapped the 3 boys. So there is some kind of a cooperation. So maybe a disengagement from the West Bank won't be so bad.
Exactly the contrary. I mean, the cooperation exists because we are on the ground, because the IDF and the Shabak, the Israeli Secret Service, are on the ground. The moment we leave Judea and Samaria, we withdraw our forces, then the Gaza scenario reappears. Then, let's put it bluntly, the political life, the political life, and maybe also the biological life of Mahmoud Abbas and his colleagues, I hope not Mr. Al-Ajrami, will come to an end. The skyscrapers in Ramallah from which Hamas people will throw the Fatah leaders are much higher than those in Gaza.
But you know, the intelligence forces are also working in the Gaza Strip. The intelligence
not in the way. Of course, there is no cooperation, but
not in the They are. There
one
is
of the reasons
gathering.
that, for instance, we could not release Gilad Shalit in Gaza is the fact that we are not there.
Do you see this scenario? Do you see the scenario that maybe Mahmoud Abbas cannot control the West Bank by himself without Israel? Maybe Israel just prevented a coup that was supposed to happen in the West Bank that Hamas planned. So maybe Mahmoud Abbas needs Israel.
You don't see the situation nowadays. Hamas failed totally to keep controlling Gaza Strip. Hamas now went towards Mahmoud Abbas, and they have together the unity government, because Hamas wouldn't have the international recognition of it, even the Arab recognition of Hamas, even after the winning the election in 2006. This is a problem for Hamas, because Hamas until this moment is not.
What is preventing Mahmoud Abbas to take the power in the Gaza Strip right now?
Until this moment, Hamas movement is the only party who has the force, the power in the
Yeah, but
Gaza
they took
Strip.
it by force. Why Mahmoud Abbas is not taking it back by force? Let me ask like the children. Why, if they took it by force, why Mahmoud Abbas is not doing it?
He hasn't forces to win Hamas by force, but it is also not the Hamas, the President Mahmoud Abbas attitude. He is against the conflict, the harmful conflict with the Hamas movement. He didn't want to have clashes with Hamas. He wanted Hamas to realize that they cannot control Gaza Strip forever, and they cannot get the recognition from the Arab
He didn't really forgive them for what they did in 2006.
No one can forgive them about what they did, but unfortunately they are a part of the Palestinian society and they can deal with it. Now Hamas goes towards Mahmoud Abbas. They want to have some kind of recognition. They want to integrate in the Palestinian movement. This is good also for the peace process.
You started with a very pessimistic, let's say, approach.
Realistic.
Pessimistic approach. Do you see a solution?
Well, in the long term, they will have a solution, but on the short term, we have to go to Plan B, and Plan B is to make improvements on the ground, on the human side, and not on the national side, not on the political side of the conflict.
Gentlemen, thank you very, very much for being with me in this part. This concludes this special edition, a reminder of the day's events. An attempted terror attack in Jerusalem in one of the city's eastern neighborhoods has left at least 8 people injured and one 3-month-old baby dead. The perpetrator is reportedly a resident of the Silwan neighborhood who served jail time for security offenses. Tomorrow, we will be here the same time, same place, let's hope with better news. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Good night.